THC, the chemical in marijuana that gives users the high feeling. One hit on a dab pen today is the same as smoking 50 old-fashioned joints back in the day. Use of THC before the age of 25 causes changes in brain development, a loss of IQ points, and lower motivation. Studies show THC increases the risk of anxiety, depression, and schizophrenia in developing brains. I lost my child, but it's not too late for yours. Educate your teen on the harms of marijuana.
A public service message from the nonprofit Johnny's Ambassadors. Learn the risks and get the facts at johnnysambassadors.org.
Looking for that one place to find out information you want that used to be in the morning paper? How about trying the lynchburgportal.com? On-demand news from Bill Trefiro. On-demand weather daily from VTRN in-house staff meteorologist Matt Ferguson. Classic hits from the 70s, 80s, and 90s on the Rewind 1039 stream. The best talk shows and CBS News every 30 minutes on the WIQO and WGNN streams. The best play-by-play and the Fast Lane with Ed Lane on the VTRN Sports WVGM stream. A business directory from the Lynchburg Business Alliance. Up-to-date events from the Lynchburg Tourism Site. Great discounts from InsaneRadioDeals.com and many more ideas on how to promote your business. And it can all be found on the lynchburgportal.com. That's the lynchburgportal.com.
You're stepping into the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app, 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg, or by asking Alexa or Google Home, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane.
Do we want to just knock out all the sound bites to start the fast lane today? First of all,
time to take a detour in the fast lane.
And more specifically, it's time to get into the weeds.
The haters say we get into the weeds. They may even say we get into the weed.
Smoke weed every day.
Nah. We love getting into the weeds to discuss some cool sports details here in the Fast Lane.
So as most of you know, about a month or so ago, 4 weeks to the day actually, is when we made the switch to ESPN Radio. As of now, who knows how things will evolve over time, but as of now, we have even more play-by-play opportunities than we've ever had, and we are very fortunate. And the metrics don't lie. We get great listenership off of play-by-play, at least from our precise streaming metrics, even though some people might use the old diary method, which is not very official. It is used in this area, and if you have a lot of money, you can convince people to do anything, even if it really doesn't make sense and really isn't very accurate. And if you're a business owner that's bound by numbers, you'll just believe false numbers over no numbers at all, or real but less mainstream numbers. Because, I mean, our streams are precise. The diary methods that other radio platforms use, not really, but hey, everybody can believe whatever they want. So, as we get into the weeds in the fast lane, because of that, there's more play-by-play than we've had before. As you might notice, we've added some ESPN radio football games over the weekend, including the Washington Commanders' loss to the Atlanta Falcons yesterday. We will speak with someone who was on site down in the ATL, Bowie TV Sports Madam President Candy Waller, in the back half of covering the Commonwealth around 5:50 today here in the fast lane. But because of the play-by-play, we have the Major League Baseball playoffs. Not the whole thing. Football on days where there is a conflict. Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And even Monday nights. Football will win out. But when there's an opportunity to add some baseball playoffs, or maybe even, yes, sprinkle in some baseball, just keep in mind, at other spots, we're going to do that. Which means there is no edition of the Fast Lane tomorrow or Wednesday. And, possibly Thursday as well. Playoff baseball starts early afternoon, and we'll have it for you. The entire first and second day of wild card baseball playoff action on the VTRN Sports app. So, That is why we don't have much of a show. That's why we're not going into one real big topic this week in the Fast Lane, and why our guest lineup may feel a little bit more fractured. Now,
after Ed's potentially unnecessary detour, let's get back on the road in the Fast Lane.
To the weekend that was in the Commonwealth of Virginia. High school football, college football, the NFL. High school football, JF football, couldn't quite get over the LCA hump on JF Cavaliers football presented by TrostLaw.com. They're off this coming week. They return next Friday the 10th against Amherst, 6:30 p.m. Central VA Flooring kickoff show on our sister station, 100.9 FM. But it was a phenomenal game, and it started off with an 85-yard kick return from Nesselrot from LCA for a touchdown. 7-0, bam. JF answers, but LCA went for 2, got it. JF went for 2, they did not get it. So it was LCA 8-6. They would repeat the touchdown exchange sequence over the latter part of the first quarter, but again, LCA converted their extra point. They had a 15-6 lead. Ironically, the same score as halftime last year, although that game was not close in the second half, 35 unanswered. This year, JF answered, but once again going for 2 and once again missing it. And it's those winning on the margins moments that is still what makes LCA a dangerous team. Have you seen them yet, TJ, for your high school football games that you do?
No, I've yet to see LCA. I saw them for their benefit game, but not in a regular season game.
So, and benefit games are more accurate than scrimmages. If you're high school football calendar, if you want to get nerd out for a second, there's a scrimmage 2 weeks before the season opens, mid-August. Then the next week, the week before the season begins, there's a benefit game. It plays out like a regular game, but think of it like a preseason NFL game. Starters get some action early. They start working in backups, different combinations, all those things. So you don't get a full picture, but you get more of a picture in high school football than you do in other realms of football, notably the NFL. And my observation on this is LCA, they deserve to be the team to beat in the Seminole District. I think the biggest challenger now to them would be the Heritage Pioneers. I do think it's a 3-tiered race in terms of the teams that are at the top of the district. I'd put JF in that category. They were right there neck and neck, but I mean, the biggest advantage LCA has last year was Gideon Davidson. He was an eraser. He was a cheat code. The 35-0 second half burst of LCA at JF last year was literally Gideon Davidson induced. Screen pass, had all the moves you would expect from a top 100 Division I recruit, which he was. He showed them all off in one play, and it jump-started LCA to 35 unanswered. He had a strip sack, a strip fumble that he forced also that turned into another touchdown on another LCA drive. And even when LCA threw the ball, they had one-on-ones because everyone was afraid of Gideon Davidson. That was last year. This year's different. They've remade how they approach games. They started off fast. They were aggressive on special teams by going for 2 early and a kick return for a touchdown. They won in special teams, the third phase of the game. They won on the margins, good timeout management, understanding how to bleed the clock at the end of the game, plus advantage in the turnover margin. But the other thing they have is they got one of the best offensive line coaches in the entire area in Jake Grove, who, yes, I get it, he went to Virginia Tech, and before that, he's a graduate of Jefferson Forest. But they are so gifted in terms of the coachability, the scheme, the way in which he approaches coaching, that it showed off. And it wasn't everything that made LCA dominant in years past. It's they don't have the depth of other programs, but they have enough depth. They have a couple of linemen that are juniors that look like Division I caliber recruits. They have another senior lineman, Austin Tremblay, who's committed to Liberty. This is not a blow everyone out. I still think Heritage, they're a stingy defensive team. They're the ones that did not back down from LCA at all last year. They gave them the best game last year, and Heritage returns a good core of players. So I think it's a 3-team race atop the Seminole District. You know, other programs may give LCA fits here and there, but the combination of coaching and talent is still good enough to keep them in a lot of games. But from a JF perspective, it's a barometer test. And even if Heritage loses to LCA, it's also a barometer test for teams in terms of that, because LCA is going to win on the margins this year. They are so well coached. They have arguably one of the top 5 coaching staffs in the entire Commonwealth of Virginia. And you put all that together with still really good talent. It's in the trenches, so it's not the flashy running back or wide receiver or anything else they've had in prior years. They're good. They're solid in those areas. There's nothing explosive there like they have with Gideon Davidson. But they have everything else under control that's going to make them still a very difficult out in a team that, I don't know if they'll win states this year. If they do, they'll have to probably fight through some more games. But they're still a threat to be a post-Thanksgiving team, which is a state quarterfinalist.
I would heavily agree, LCA. I think if anyone could beat LCA, it would be Heritage right now. I thought JF gave them a great battle. I got to keep up with some of the stats while I was calling Brookville and Amherst. Amherst upset Brookville. But no, I think LCA and Heritage, it's going to come down between those two. I wish I could say Brookville, but the Thomas brothers are out right now, and that could hurt Brookville.
Yeah, there's some eligibility concerns with them. I've gotten word of that from enough people where, I feel comfortable saying it.
Yeah.
By the way, shout out to Ben Cates of newsadvance.com. He had a great career. He announced over the weekend that he's stepping away. He's phenomenal as a local sports reporter, and he's been great with us, and we're going to try to link up with him one more time. It may not be this week again because of the Major League Baseball playoffs on VTR and Sports that are taking over Tuesday, Wednesday, and probably Thursday, meaning no show the rest of this week until Friday. So it's getting a little clunky for us the next couple of weeks, but we aim to connect with Ben. Ben would be on top of this story. This is not to pile on Bryson Gordon, but Bryson is covering now high school sports and Liberty Flames athletics. And he is great at that, as you know, from listening to him on the morning warm-up every Wednesday when he appears 7 to 8 a.m. right here on the VTR and Sports app. But there's a lot of irons in the fire, and this story has kind of popped up recently. And I don't mean to be the next guy in media that bemoans the state of media. And we've always been kind of lean and mean at the Virginia Talk Radio Network. That's just kind of our operation. Like we're all overworked and underpaid here. We love what we do. And everybody's got really a full-time job around our on-air stuff. TJ has stuff and Ty have stuff away from the Virginia Talk Radio Network. Luke is an intern. Trey's full-time job is doing all the technical stuff here at the Virginia Talk Radio Network. Mine is doing sales. So really we're full-time in other stuff, but we get to pursue a passion that I venture to say you love, TJ, and that I love. But it makes it challenging with coverage from that. Dave Walls and stepping away from WSET, ABC 13, and now Will Stafford adding sports to his meteorological duties. It's making it challenging. So I bring all that up to say, if you're wondering why the Thomas brothers were currently not playing for Brookville, and to me,
it's because they live in Bedford County.
Well, I get that, but I will say this. How do I say this as diplomatically as possible?
LCA gets away with a lot more.
Well, those are your words. Mine would be more this. I've known of plenty of instances where players will move in. I'm going to use air quotes for those watching on the VTR and Sports app and Fastlane, Edlane, YouTube and Facebook Live. They will move in with a relative who lives in a certain school district.
Yeah.
And then they will all of a sudden be eligible to go to that school. Now, whether they're actually living with that relative or that's just the listed mailing address and said uncle or aunt or cousin or grandparent, again, quotes for all of that, might ship the mail right back over to the biological parents or the adopted parents. In your case, that stuff happens. So that's my thing. And look, this is a JF broadcaster coming up with I get it. Rules are rules. I understand that to an extent. But to me, this is more semantics than everything else. And look, I'll just call a spade a spade. If Logan Thomas wanted to buy a house or rent an apartment from our friends at Brownstone Properties, they would certainly be glad to facilitate an apartment for rent. Again, air quotes, because no one might be living there, but it might be the, quote, listed address so that they could, quote, be in the Brookville School District. They could easily just go to brownstoneproperties.com and solve this particular issue. And then all of a sudden, the Thomas family would be, quote, living in the Brookville district, end quote. And I'm not saying this to put down the Thomas family or Brookville, but to say this stuff happens so often in high school sports where people will, quote, live or move into a different district, end quote. That's where it does not bother me. I get it's a story. It's there. It's worth addressing. Heck, we brought it up. We might as well just go down that road.
Let's just say we could see a court date, from what I've been told, between the Thomas brothers and the VHSL district. Logan has said he'll take it to court if he has to.
Look, with all due respect to the VHSL, this is one parent that might or might not, if you want to go to spotrack.com and see how much he's earned in his career, you can. He has earned enough in his career that he can fight this legal battle. This is not, 2311 Racing and Michael Jordan NASCAR going up against NASCAR, because those are like multimillionaires and billionaires fighting it out. But these are still very financially well-off entities, and that's a much different deal. And, again, this is the route the VHSL is going down. Like, to me, and I don't know who brought this up or how this came about, the whole Logan Thomas's kids not playing at Brookville deal. But,
it's been a thing since week 1, but VHL-SL stepped away from it. And then Brookville started winning. And all of a sudden VHL was like, oh, this might be a problem.
What? All right. If this is the VHSL, I don't know if it is or not. Take this with a grain of salt. Transfers, if you think it's bad, by the way, in this area for like certain prep schools, players transferring to different areas. First of all, I lived in the Martinsville, Henry County area. If you were good in football, you would move in with your relatives in the county. Again, quote unquote. If you were good in basketball, you would move in with your relatives, quote unquote, in the city because you wanted to play in that area. This is going on. And if you think it's bad here, VHSL could camp out in the 757 or in the Northern Virginia or the Richmond areas, because those examples are even more prevalent to a larger extent. And I mean, I'll just say this. If John Marshall High School has been able to get away with whatever they got away with for years in basketball, I mean, this is small potatoes. This reminds me of the NCAA, where they would always seemingly go after, like, the best example, Carolina football, but not Carolina basketball. Like, do you honestly think the Carolina basketball players just sat around while Carolina football players were getting, quote, impermissible benefits, end quote, under Butch Davis, and the basketball players like, they're getting them, but we play basketball, but we're going to do it by the rules. So we'll go ahead and forfeit those extra benefits rather than asking for it as part of our, before it was illegal, compensation packages.
Yeah.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
The NCAA didn't want to do anything about that. Like, this is where the cherry picking drives me up the wall. They're cherry picking spots as opposed to having consistent levels of enforcement. And there are 100 ways this could go. I don't pretend to know all the details, so keep that with a grain of salt. But it is what it is. It's out there. So figured we needed to get to that. Meanwhile, we have not gotten to the majority of college football and even the NFL, and we still have to get the experts' takes in covering the Commonwealth. So we will do that right now in, I don't know if you'll call it fast, but the Fast 5 at 5-ish.
It's time for Fast 5 at 5-ish. 5-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics done around 5 p.m.-ish. Ish, because our counting skills are kind of ish. Let's start with number 5.
Liberty falls at Old Dominion over the weekend in a game that, honestly, and I was listening back at Fastlane Ed Lane to do a little coach session with our own TJ earlier today to listen to some of his feedback. And we all thought that Old Dominion would cover as a 14.5 to 16.5 point favorite. None of them cashed because it was 21-7 final score. It honestly could have been a lot wider margin than that. Like, Old Dominion thoroughly outgained Liberty. They outgained Liberty by 279 yards, 489 to 210. Like, this was not really all that competitive of a game. The rain kept it close early because of turnovers that arose really for both sides. And Liberty's defense, again, if we're grading it out, I kind of give them about a C to a C minus. Like, it's not great. They're hanging in there for a while, but ultimately they end up breaking over the course of the game. We've kind of seen that where they're on the field a longer period of time. They could be doing more, but they have times even where they create turnovers, and like the interception that, what's his name had? No. The interception that Liberty pulled off in the red zone with Brylan Green. The interception that took away an Old Dominion scoring chance. Is it bad to say, but as soon as the interception happened and all of a sudden Liberty doesn't return it for a touchdown, I'm like, oh God, there goes a chance to score points. Like, that's where Liberty is right now offensively.
Yeah.
It is. I don't have a lot of confidence in the offensive unit. I'm not saying Jamie Chadwell can't figure it out, but I think there were some roster misevaluations and misdevelopments that have occurred over the course of the offseason that now have Liberty in a real precarious spot right now. They don't have a lot of power at running back. I think people, myself included, to get my usher on. But to confess, I didn't think the losses of White and Gray on the offensive line would be as big of an issue for Liberty as they were, because they weren't great last year, but I don't think they've adequately replaced and developed that. This is a spot where Liberty clearly needs to figure things out because, yeesh, it is a tough watch offensively for the Flames right now, and the bye could not come at a better time to try something to see if you can get it going once conference play begins at UTEP next week.
Yeah, and it was very obvious when Michael Merdinger had to run for his life most of the entire game. But, I mean, Jamie said there's definitely a bunch of things they got to work on. I asked him, what's one major thing you think you need to work on? And he gave me 3 and 4 things. So obviously he knows there's work to be done.
By the way, it was a Corey Jones, not Brylan Green, with the interception. Green had an injury, looked pretty severe, did not return. There's no media availability until Thursday of this week, but I hope this is not the case. I pray it's not, but if we're going to recklessly speculate based on looks.
A lower body injury, but they're saying it's not season ending, according to Jamie.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good thing because it looked like it was almost a hyperextension, or it could have been a tear, and hopefully it's a hyperextension, which means Green may not be back. But, I mean, that guy, he's a leader for the team. He's done a lot. You just hate to see that type of injury for the Flames. They're hanging in there and fighting. I don't think there's a team that's not quit, but schematically they need some work, which brings us into, we've said it before, but the shortest version is this. Offense and defense, I think I'm not in a fire Jamie Chadwell camp. Even if Liberty gets 3 to 4 wins this year, we're going to see more volatility in results year over year. You're going to have years where teams go for it. More on that later in the Fast Five at 5-ish, and it works out. And then years like last year at Virginia Tech where teams go for it and it does not work out. But you're going to have some years where you go for it, and in the next couple of years, you don't go in with the same financial investment. You don't retain the players. So it's like Florida State. 2 years ago, they were a team that made a New Year's Six bowl game, should have been in the college football playoff over Alabama, but they were not. Then the next year, they go 2-10. And then this year, I know they lost to Virginia, but they're still a top 25 caliber team. You're going to have those volatilities that take place. Now, if there's no changes at all from recruiting philosophy to offseason program to staffing at Liberty, I think at that point you have to bat a red flag because you can't have a disappointing season at 1-4 start. And at best for Liberty, at best, it's an 8-4 season. You can't have this type of a year with this much disappointment and this much disjointed look, especially on offense, but even defense having their concerns and not have some level of accountability, whether it's player changes, coaching changes, or probably a combination of both. But I'm not in a spot where you wouldn't make changes, and I think Jamie Chadwell is heady up enough to know that something is likely to happen going forward. Meanwhile,
Number 3.
Give credit where it's due to ODU. They're a team that came out, they were controlled, they were purposeful. Even with the turnovers, they really didn't have any major concerns for Liberty. It always felt like they were in control of this game, and it is shaping up in a couple of weeks. I know we're still about 3 weeks out, 2.5 weeks from their trip to JMU for what's going to be an anticipated and deservedly so matchup. But ODU JMU is looking like a really good matchup. JMU showed a lot of maturity in their 35-10 victory. They were in control the entire way. Could have been worse against Georgia Southern on Saturday, but they were never in doubt. And it was one of those where they took care of business early. They jumped out. They stayed on the lead. They were in control. And then it led to more opportunities beyond that, which we will get to in about 5 minutes with Shane Metlin of DNRonline.com. But Virginia Tech over the weekend. Cathartic is the word that comes to mind. They need a lot for me to sit there and go, oh, Philip Montgomery, he's going to be the long-term solution to turn everything around at Virginia Tech. I think there's organization. I don't think that was Pry's strong suit, obviously. He obviously has pushed the right buttons. And while some players have entered the transfer portal, and that's a different topic we'll get to later, and we did a trostlaw.com fast take on that already, Fastlane, Headlane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you consume your social media content. But for Virginia Tech, it was cathartic in the sense that the guys that played Saturday looked like they wanted to play. I get it. This is an old Wolfpack gonna Wolfpack type loss where NC State gets the big victory early in the year against Virginia, which all of a sudden is like, wow, how'd they beat Virginia? Yeah. And then this game, they lose to Virginia Tech, and it's like, how'd they lose to a bad Virginia Tech team? Like, that's where they are. But I give Tech a lot of credit because they came in and looked focused, bought in, and, I mean, they finally won a one-score game.
Yeah, and look, they had Tucker Holloway into the portal. They got 2 more guys that got taken off the roster that are probably entering the portal. These were guys they were having to substitute in, and you beat a decent NC State team.
Yes.
Definitely give them credit.
No doubt. Meanwhile, biggest credit goes to
Number 1.
the Virginia Cavaliers. I'm not big on celebrating to the point where you get injured rushing the field. And I'm glad Squirrel White, ironic name, but the wide receiver got run over by road traffic, somehow survived.
Yeah.
The leg is where I'd be worried. It's the upper body. I mean, he's protected with a helmet, a face mask, and shoulder pads. There's pretty good padding there for a player. So as quickly as the players came over top of him, I mean, as soon as that ball hit the ground, bam, everybody from the Hill of Charlottesville converged. I mean, there was no time. No. It was good enough to stay up for. It was good enough that it negatively, I wasn't going to do great anyway, but it negatively impacted my performance in the 10-mile race Saturday. And look, those that ran well, give them a lot of credit. There are a lot of people that hung in there in that race on Saturday that was 10 miles or even 4 miles in the Hill City in those sloppy, nasty conditions. But the matchup itself for Virginia, it's worth celebrating in the sense that it really did feel like for Virginia, they have beaten bad teams, and they don't have a ton of opportunities on the schedule. Louisville this weekend has letdown written all over it because high emotional victory. Everyone celebrates. You had the Friday night to go out and party and throw down if you're a player. And then you have to go on the road to Louisville, who's a pretty good team, and going to be looking to be more crisp than they were and barely escaping Pitt with a victory over the weekend. So, I mean, this to me has letdown written all over it. If you have a way to get down, Louisville seems very tempting in this matchup. I don't know what the line is. I haven't checked on it. But for Virginia, this is the type of performance they've been lacking in the Tony Elliott era. And it shows, again, defense, I've got concerns about Virginia, but there's enough offensive firepower that they will be able to outscore and win a lot of games just by virtue of that. Meanwhile, we'll get to more on that when we return because Jerry Ratcliffe, veteran UVA reporter, slated to step into the fast lane next. VTRN Sports app, and ask that smart speaker, open VTRN Sports.
The Drive into Fall sales event is on at Magic City Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Bedford. Looking for financing as low as 0%? It's yours when you drive home in a 2025 Jeep Grand Cherokee with 3-row seating, or choose a brand new 2025 Ram 1500 and get 0% financing for 72 months. Huge savings are here at the Drive into Fall sales event at Magic City Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Bedford, 1750 Independence Boulevard, MagicCityBedford.com. The Brew Credit dealer for details. Ends 9/30/25.
Is it time for a new place to call home? Moving out on your own? Perhaps your existing lease is up for renewal. Looking for a new roommate? Or maybe you just need a change of scenery. Then you need to check out brownstoneproperties.com. We have Central Virginia's largest selection of apartments, townhomes, and single-family homes. Applying is easy with our online application. Visit us online to begin your search at brownstoneproperties.com.
Get ready for the Star City Half Marathon, 10K, and Kids 1 Mile Run, happening Saturday, November 22nd. Participate in one of the region's longest-standing running traditions, showcasing the Greenway and an after-party featuring Roanoke's favorite foods, beverages, and music. Every participant gets a race shirt and a finisher medal. Don't wait to sign up. Register today at commonwealthgames.org/Star City. It's the Star City Half Marathon, 10K, and Kids 1 Mile Run, brought to you by Virginia Amateur Sports.
Hi, I'm Chuck from Aquatrack Adventures in Salem. The Virginia Talk Radio Network and InsaneRadioDeals.com have helped our company grow by sharing our company's message throughout Central and Southside Virginia. The gift cards and experiences sold on InsaneRadioDeals.com have brought us many new customers. If you're a business that wants to grow with a message that resonates and gets results, I highly recommend InsaneRadioDeals.com and the Virginia Talk Radio Network. Simply put, it works.
Feel the excitement, experience the intensity. Castle Coliseum comes alive when Hokie basketball takes the court.
He made it on 1 foot. Lead, it's down.
From buzzer beaters to hard-fought battles, Virginia Tech men's and women's basketball takes on the toughest teams in the ACC.
Yeah, bumping in. Here come the Hokies.
Castle erupts. Don't just hear about it, be there. Tickets on sale now at Hokiesports.com.
Hi, I'm Vicki Runk. If Alzheimer's has touched your family, you know. Our Alzheimer's golf tournament at Ivy Hill is a day to remember. Every swing funds local memory care and support groups for caregivers doing the hardest work of all. Put a loved one's name on your scoreboard, bring a foursome, or come solo. Sponsorships welcome. Spots are limited. Please register at runkapratt.com or contact Ivy Hill Golf Club for more details. Let's play for the people we love.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
I don't even know if professional victories are a bad phrase to use since there's rev share to a certain extent with so many in college athletics, but we've used it to describe the Virginia Cavaliers. That's not going to be our description with Jerry Ratcliffe in just a bit, but we might use it to kick off covering the Commonwealth.
It's time for your teams and topics. Covering the Commonwealth, a look at teams and topics from around the Commonwealth. Let's start with the JMU Duke.
Shane Metlin, DNRonline.com with us here in the Fast Lane. Shane, The Dukes jumped out to an early lead Saturday. They put it in cruise control over the latter part of that game. Is professional victory a good way to describe the way the Dukes performed coming off the more emotionally charged battle for the Blue Ridge victory against Liberty the weekend before?
Yeah, I think so. I think, it describes kind of the approach, the mindset that they're kind of just, taking it day by day. I mean, I've described, some of the players in various sports at the college level, even when they weren't getting paid, as pros because of the way that they carried themselves and handled their business and everything. So it's a fairly good description of what they did on Saturday, because it was a thorough, efficient kind of a decimation of Georgia Southern.
How much of this is Bob Chesney and his impact? How much of this is the fact that I've always been struck by Alonzo Barnett and how he seems to be much more mature and grounded than a lot of other quarterbacks in his age category?
Yeah, probably some of both. I think, Chesney here in year two just has more of his guys or his type of guys in here. I think there was a rush to fill out the roster in year one. So maybe you bring in some players who don't quite fit the same kind of mentality that he's had throughout his career. And then, your quarterback sets the tone, especially on offense. And Alonzo Barnett is definitely a very mature player, level-headed. He's been through some things, but, he's come out on the other side. And, I think it's probably a combination of both when you're talking about JMU.
In the JMU notebook at dnronline.com, by the way, shout out to you and your colleague, Katie Harper. It warms my heart as somebody who loves trench warfare. Not literally, but we're talking about in the football sense, offensive line and defensive line play. How much has that been the understated reality of JMU? Something that really jumped out to me was how they dominated Liberty in the trenches when I saw the Dukes and the Flames battle it out last Saturday. But that seems to have been a common theme here, that these are not quite the size athleticism of bigger schools, but they've got enough of each to be in a spot where they seem to be really controlling the tempo on both sides.
Yeah, they really have some good size on the offensive line in particular. And you talked about the tempo too. Like, that was when one possession, Georgia Southern really kind of moved the ball, and they were doing it with tempo. They were getting to the line of scrimmage fast. And, one play where they get into the backfield and kind of disrupt that and get them off schedule. And that makes a huge difference when you're talking about the defensive line. I think, both sides of the ball, they are winning the battles in the trenches so far with the teams they've played. Even Louisville, a game they lost, they did not look overwhelmed. Louisville got some pressure on the quarterback, so we'll say that. But I think to me that had even more to do with the play calling than the performance of the offensive line itself. I think they've got some good size on both sides of the line of scrimmage, and the offense in particular, they kind of look like a power forward type of offensive line.
All right, next question to wrap it up with Shane Metlin of DNRonline.com. Is Georgia State as bad as the record would indicate, or is this a team that, people have to remember these losses have come to Vanderbilt and Ole Miss, who are both top 15 caliber programs, and then Memphis, who, did beat Arkansas. Granted, that was when Sam Pittman was kind of on his way out.
Yeah, Bob Chesney today, he swore up and down they're not as bad as their record, and it's been a tough schedule. Yeah, you mentioned, two ranked teams, and then, Memphis is at the top of a lot of people who do group of five, top 25s. They're at the top of a lot of those polls. So I think they have played a pretty tough schedule, and they looked like what you would expect when they played their FCS game against Murray State. So they definitely got some talent there. Ted, he's a really, really good wide receiver that they brought back. And I think they're going to be more of a challenge than their record might indicate that they should be.
Yes, they will. We will chat more on the Dukes, though, next week with Shane Metlin of DNRonline.com. Perhaps we'll get you on the schedule because we're at the ACC basketball tip-off next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So it may be a little janky. If not, we'll get with you in a couple of weeks leading into what looks like it's going to be a big showdown between the Monarchs and the Dukes in the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, if they both win, that's going to be a big one.
Yes, they will. Meanwhile, we will shift over from the JMU Dukes to with JerryRatcliffe.com founder and contributor Jerry Hootie Ratcliffe. Hootie, $50,000 fine for the Virginia Cavaliers for storming the field. Did you contribute to Virginia getting fined, or were you safe and sound in the press box just watching the mayhem unfold?
I was watching the mayhem unfold from my usual perch up at the press box, and I didn't want to be involved in that mass of humanity down on the field. That's for sure. You just asking for trouble down there.
No doubt about it. And Squirrel White wasn't even asking for it, although some might say he was when he couldn't haul in that fourth down reception that was grossly underthrown by Tommy Castellanos for Florida State. Overall, though, how big is the moment for Virginia to get this victory, given that they've shown progress in the fourth year of Tony Elliott, but not quite to the point where you go, oh, this is a team that we take seriously because they've beaten a marquee type team?
I think it was a massive moment in Virginia football. I think it's their biggest win in 20 years, even though they beat a good Virginia Tech team or a decent Virginia Tech team in 2019 to capture their only Coastal Division title. But I think you got to go all the way back to 2005 when Al Grove's team upset a highly ranked Florida State. I think they were fourth in the country then, behind Marcus Hagan's, to find a moment this big. And I mean, I think it was a defining moment for Tony Elliott because he showed that with talent and lots of playmakers, they can win a big game. They've been really good at home so far. They've built some momentum, and they're taking advantage of all the work they did in the transfer portal. You're right. I mean, they're already considered an underdog at Louisville this coming weekend. So they've got a lot more proving to do, a lot more work to do. Just because you score one big win doesn't mean you're there. And I think they understand that. They've got a huge game at Louisville this weekend if they want to keep that momentum up. If they can win in Louisville, then the sky's kind of the limit for this team in terms of the rest of the back end of the schedule.
I would selfishly, people ask all the time who my favorite team is in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and my answer is all of them, because the better they do, the more enjoyable our job is, Hootie. But got to keep it real as well. Louisville had a tough victory where they were kind of sloppy at Pitt for a good chunk of Saturday before pulling it off. Now they're back home looking to play different. Meanwhile, this is a Virginia team that is a program historically. They get these field rushing victories, and all of a sudden the next week, it just kind of comes unhinged the next game. How big of a concern is that for you, especially given that Virginia's defense has been leaky and Louisville's offense can score and score quickly?
Yeah, I think if it comes down to just a track meet where it's going to be a shootout, I think Virginia is pretty confident they can play with just about anybody because they have a terrific quarterback who's ranked in the top 25 in about 6 different categories in the country. They've got an incredible array of playmakers and a pretty decent offensive line, maybe even a really good offensive line. We'll get to see that for sure, but I don't think they're. I don't want to say that they're not worried about defense, but I think they feel like that even if the defense is leaky, if they need to win a shootout, they can win a shootout. But they're going into a territory where they have not been very successful over the years. They've only won once at Louisville in all these years, and they've gotten blown out at Louisville a few times as well. So even though they've had Louisville on the ropes the last 2 years, they've let them off, and it's cost them big time. It cost them bowl game last year for sure. But this is a massive win or a massive challenge for them to be able to take it on the road and win, and that's something that they haven't done yet. They got beat down at NC State when they probably should have won, but didn't get the job done. So woulda, shoulda, coulda is not going to be good enough if they're going to Louisville.
No, it's not. Meanwhile, the insight is always more than good enough. It's fantastic at jerryratcliffe.com. Hootie, great to chat with you in the fast lane. We appreciate your time today. I don't know how we're going to do next week. We'll figure that out when we get there because I'll be at the ACC football tip-off, or basketball tip-off. I'd imagine you might be down there as well later in the week. So if that's the case, we may table it and chat again in a couple of weeks to get more of a progress report on the Virginia Cavaliers.
we'll figure it out. We always do.
We do indeed. Jerry Ratcliffe with us here to wrap up part 1 of covering the Commonwealth. When we return, part 2, Chris Coleman, TechSideline.com on the win for the Hokies at NC State. We'll also talk NASCAR at Kansas. That was a win for those of us that love good racing. And then Washington Commanders. Not a win, but we have to discuss it with Seawall, Madam President. All of that's still to come in the Fast Lane, 93.3 FM, VTRN Sports app powered by ESPN.
You know, when you get insurance, it's to protect you in case something happens and you're at fault. But it also needs to protect you in case you are not at fault and a situation still arises. How can you do that? That's where we get to chat now with Randy Trost of Trost Law. Randy, a pleasure to be speaking with you. We appreciate your time and perspective. What can people do to make sure they're protected if a situation arises and they are not at fault?
If you are in a motor vehicle collision and you are not at fault, and the unfortunate situation occurs where the at-fault driver does not have any insurance or high levels of liability coverage, you can have, and you should have, high levels of uninsured motorist coverage and underinsured motorist coverage. For instance, the minimum required levels of liability insurance currently in Virginia are $30,000 per instance, $60,000 per wreck. You never want to have that low of policy limits to protect yourself, and you always want to make sure you have higher uninsured or underinsured policy limits above and beyond the 30-60 policies that they write for the minimum here in Virginia.
And then people can also build on that by having a strong umbrella policy.
Yes, if you have a higher value liability, uninsured, underinsured coverage policy, you can also get an umbrella policy. But if you buy an umbrella policy, make sure that that umbrella policy provides uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage in addition to just liability coverage.
Randy, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
For more info, trostlaw.com, 434-777-HURT.
It's so worth the drive to big savings at the Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile. Shop local and save more with exceptional service and selection. Your search stops here with over 900 pre-owned vehicles to choose from, plus a huge selection of new car brands in Southwest Virginia. Honda, Hyundai, Toyota, Subaru, Kia, Chevrolet, Mitsubishi, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. 11 new car brands, 900 used vehicles, all in one location. The Sheeler Motor Mile gives you more choices with pre-owned cars, trucks, vans, and SUVs. Many have miles in the teens, remaining factory warranties, and some are even local one-owner vehicles. More than any other dealer in the area, plus exceptional service, selection, savings, and financing options, and top dollar for your trade. Volume selling means volume pricing, and we've got the volume with 11 new car brands and over 900 used vehicles, all in one location. And we're proud to support our local schools and community. The Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile, your premier car dealer, locally and family-owned for over 50 years. I-81 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com.
Relaxing in a radiant sunroom, enjoying the breeze in a screen room, or the sun on the deck. No matter the weather, customize how you feel whenever you want. Call Collins Custom Builders. All sunrooms, screen rooms, and decks are built by Collins employees, many with decades of experience, and some who've been with Collins Custom Builders since 1989. That means workers who embrace accountability and are committed to crafting your vision of the perfect sunroom, screen room, or deck. See some of their projects at collinscustombuilders.com, then call Collins Custom Builders. In most things, it's hard to go from ordinary to extraordinary. It's easy with your home or business. Call the Concrete Wizard and transform your place into an extraordinary space. If you're tired of looking at unsightly concrete, then bring light to your old surfaces. Call the Concrete Wizard for free design consultations, free estimates, and fast professional concrete resurfacing. And visit theconcretewizard.com for ideas from other before and after photos.
Hey, this is Virginia Tech analyst and former Hokies tight end Mike Burnham. You're listening to The Fast Lane with Ed Lane and Trey Lyle. Join the chat at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.
Should we have used this word last week? This week? Both weeks? Well, we'll find out right now in part 2 of
It's time for your teams and topics. Covering the Commonwealth, a look at teams and topics from around the Commonwealth. Let's start with the Virginia Tech Hokies.
Chris Coleman, lead analyst for TechSideline.com, stepping in to the Fast Lane here on the VTRN Sports app and Fast Lane, Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Chris, cathartic. Is it an appropriate word to use for Virginia Tech's victory against NC State? Should it have been used last week, or is it a combination for different reasons?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good word for this week. They were going to beat Wofford no matter what last week, but I think they needed a confidence boost in a game against a similar team, and they got that this past week. And, I think that's one that the fan base really enjoyed. Probably the most enjoyable win Virginia Tech has had in quite a while. I think they played a good football game all the way around. Good on special teams, good on defense. Pretty good on offense. So they really ran the ball well. And that was the team I thought we were going to see before the season started. A pretty good running game, inconsistent but opportunistic passing game, a pretty good defense, and a great kicker. So that was a team I thought we were going to see, and they just had to fire out the head coach to actually get there.
Yeah, that's probably the unfortunate part for Virginia Tech for getting to that point. They could realistically be 3-3 after they battle Wake Forest this coming Saturday for an 11 o'clock airtime right here on the VTRN Sports app, kicking off our slate of college football action on Saturday. For Virginia Tech, where do you look now as the reasonable expectations for what this team can pull off this season?
I would say, probably 4 or 5 wins. The schedule toughens up later on. You've got Georgia Tech, although that's not an unwinnable game because Georgia Tech doesn't play as well against unranked teams. If Virginia Tech was ranked, I'd be really scared of it. But they're a good football team. Obviously, Louisville's a solid team. Florida State, Miami, UVA looks good this year, obviously. So the back half of the schedule looks pretty tough. So that's why this NC State game was important. If you want to get some wins, that was a winnable game. Obviously, Wake Forest is a winnable game. Cal at home is a winnable game. I do think Georgia Tech is winnable, kind of depending on which Georgia Tech shows up. But, this is an important stretch for Virginia Tech, and it started these last couple of weeks. If you want to get on the win column, you better do it now. Build up a little bit of momentum. Stacking wins on top of each other builds confidence, and confidence helps you win more.
Before diving into the Michael Short transfer from the linebacker from Virginia Tech, because that's its own can of worms that was opened up on Friday afternoon when a prominent NCAA representative figure, not NCAA, but NCAA college athlete representative figure, chimed in on that. But he joins Tucker Holloway. We know Dante Lovett's been in the transfer portal. A couple of defensive linemen, Joe Canham and Keyshawn Burgos also entering the portal for Virginia Tech. Is collateral damage the right way to term these departures? That they're going to happen. It's going to sting in the sense that you're going to lose some more players, but ultimately the mission is not keeping them happy. It's getting the right coach. And who knows, maybe if it makes dollars and cents, these guys might come back because it's more business than ever before.
I mean, if guys don't want to be here, then they shouldn't be here. I mean, you need bought-in players, and maybe some of these guys weren't bought in. I think some of those guys were more so removed from the roster, right? And then they hit the transfer portal. So I think there were some issues going on behind the scenes there. And, I think that's probably some of Virginia Tech's earlier issues. They played better football the other night without those guys. And, I look at a guy like Burgos who is gone, and he had regressed this year. And they put Jason Abbey in the game in his place the other night, and he was a much better football player. So your hungrier players are generally your best football players. So, I do feel for a guy like Michael Short. He was at UNC last year, and the coach got fired. So he came to Virginia Tech, and 3 games into his tenure here, the coach gets fired. That's very tough luck. So I have sympathies there. But, sometimes getting this thing right for your head coaching position, that's the most important thing. If you're not going to be well coached, it doesn't matter what players you have. Virginia Tech's got a bunch of players in the NFL right now from last year's team. An NFL Rookie of the Week, and Jalen Lane. You're talking Bishal Tootin scored touchdowns for Jacksonville. You got Stroman starting up in Buffalo. I mean, there were some really good players on last year's team, and they only won 6 games with them. So you better get that coaching position right. Ben chimed in. We got some feedback from one, but Chris Coleman of TextLineline.com with us here in the Fast Lane. And we've been meaning to ask you about this. Darren Heitner is the one who chimed in. I don't know if he's an expert, but the legal consultant on social media, if that's the proper way to term him, chimed in on Michael Short's transfer out from Virginia Tech and how Virginia Tech has handled that situation. When you saw that, now that you've had a chance to digest this,
What jumps to your mind as far as where this actually goes, if it goes anywhere?
Do we know for a fact that it's short? Because I heard it was not short.
I thought that's who it was, but it could be a different player that he was referring to.
Yeah, I heard it. I heard it was somebody else. But I don't know. But at any rate, I did talk to a lawyer about that, like a local lawyer, and he says he doesn't think the complaints will hold up in Virginia law. And obviously that's a Florida-based lawyer, so he's going to have to get a local attorney to file that. So I expect this is something that probably will get settled for a minimum amount of money, but I'm not a lawyer, so don't bank on that.
Yeah, well, at least you're honest about your feedback. We don't know how this stuff is going to pan out in the long run. Meanwhile, we know how the insight's going to pan out. It's great, as always, techsideline.com and the latest TSL podcast recapping the NC State victory that dropped earlier today. Chris Coleman with us once again here in the Fast Lane. Chris, always good to chat with you. Thank you for your time, and we appreciate it.
Okay, appreciate it. Have a good one, man.
Indeed, Chris Coleman with us here in the Fast Lane. Caleb Barnes of frontstretch.com with us once again in the Fast Lane. Caleb, appreciate your time. NASCAR at Kansas. Are we at the point now where this is the one where we go, NASCAR at Kansas always delivers?
I think so. I think people have been saying that for a while now, and I keep expecting it to be just a normal, more routine run-of-the-mill race at Kansas, and it was looking that way until basically about halfway through the third stage yesterday. But yeah, just about every time the race at Kansas delivers, I keep doubting it. I'm like, this is the one where it's going to be bad, everybody's going to be complaining, but it hasn't let me down yet.
So far, it is not, at least, and we've gotten a great race out of this. What happened yesterday? How much is Toyota really kicking themselves, considering how dominant they were, and yet it was a Hendrick Motorsports Chevrolet and NASCAR's most popular driver, Chase Elliott, who came away with a victory?
Yeah, it was definitely a tough one. I do think they have to be kind of maybe licking their chops looking at the round of 8 and looking at Las Vegas, because we've seen how important that race has been in the last couple of years, with winning that and starting off the round of 8 and then having the next 2 weeks to kind of prepare. And Toyota's been so good throughout the first couple of weeks that, I know a lot of people are talking about them pressing the panic button and all sorts of things. And I don't know. I think they maybe could be more encouraged than a lot of people are talking about based on their performances yesterday. But it just seems more of like an individualized driver sort of thing. I mean, those guys are each out there to try and win their races. And you even heard like Chase Briscoe and Christopher Bell, some of those guys, if Bubba Wallace had held on to win, that puts them in a very precarious point situation, even if it is a Toyota going to victory lane. So I think after kind of hopefully cooler heads will prevail after a day or two to sit on it, and you realize like, oh man, those guys had a lot at stake as well right there. And maybe they'll back off a little bit. I don't know. Denny Hamlin's been defending his move on the last lap, and I don't blame him.
There are 4 drivers that are on the outside looking in when it comes to the NASCAR playoff picture. Chastain, Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick, Austin Cindric. Any of them tickle your fancy as drivers that could win or at least benefit if somebody has an off day? Or do you see them almost in a need-to-win spot at the Charlotte Roval and not likely to pull it off, considering there's also SVG running this race?
Yeah, I feel like Tyler Reddick's maybe had the best speed out of those 4 before at the Roval. And then I know people talk about how like Bubba Wallace not being a good road course racer, but I feel like he has really improved over the last couple of years, slowly but surely. And the Roval has been maybe one of his better road course racetracks. So I feel like those 2 could be the ones to pick up a lot of points and make things close. And I kind of felt this way going into Bristol. It's one where I don't necessarily expect any of the guys below the cut line to outright win the race, but I feel like Joey Logano and maybe some of the other guys who are right there above the cut could, if they run into some issues or just miss out on stage points, don't have the greatest day, I feel like it could be an opportunity for them to slide back towards the cut line. I think back to Ross Chastain being good at, I believe, Watkins Glen last year when SVG was very good there as well. Ross Chastain was neck and neck with keeping pace with the 16 in 2024. And so, I mean, I think the one could show some surprise speed as well, but I more so look for the guys above the cut line to slide back down with any sort of issues and open the door for some of the guys below the cut line rather than them outright winning it.
Caleb Barnes with us here in the Fast Lane from frontstretch.com. Caleb, good to chat with you. Thank you for your overview of what happened this past weekend and what we can expect going forward. We look forward to chatting again soon.
Of course. Thanks, Ed.
Now to just for you haters, left hand up the Commanders.
Madam President of Bowie TV Sports with us here in the Fast Lane, Candy Waller. Candy, appreciate your time as always. Washington goes down to Atlanta in the game our listeners heard right here as part of our NFL quadruple header on the VTR and Sports app. We'll have a doubleheader of Monday Night Football coming up tonight starting at 7 p.m. Washington goes down to Atlanta. How much is the defense the biggest concern for this team right now?
I think it's a huge issue for the team because as much as, I spend time there and as much as we talk to Dan Quinn and Joe Witt, the defensive coordinator, some of the issues that they have been working on all summer does not seem like they have made any progress. One of the things that I look at when I am monitoring, things aren't going to always work out. Things aren't going to be perfect, but at times where it seems like they either hit a stall or they're regressing, that's never good. So, this is a big issue because the season does not get any easier at all.
No, it really does not for Washington. And you talk about the way the defense has performed with so many leaks going forward. Is it covering, I don't know if you call Kyle Pitts a tight end. He is in title, but not necessarily in the way he's used. He's more of a large wide receiver. Is it that? Is it the secondary and maybe an over-reliance on younger players and Marshawn Lattimore gets a little handsy? Is it the defensive line being good, not great? Where does the defense need to correct itself the most for the Commanders?
Well, first of all, they did a poor job of tackling. Super poor. When you look at the tackling margin, they were in double digits with missed tackles on defense. And that just should not be at this point in time in the season. If you're there, you need to get the guy down. And, running backs, Bijan Robinson, and even, in a tackling situation, they were just plowing through them. Coach Raheem Morris and the Atlanta Falcons mentioned in terms of the secondary that they saw some things out in the secondary. They saw it. So, hey, Drake London can his matchup. So they used him smartly and effectively in what he could do. But in terms of the overall defense, those missed tackles really, really hurt them pretty bad. And just the inability to get to the quarterback. And we've seen them do that well in other situations this month, but they just did not do that well at all against the Falcons.
Madam President of Bowie TV Sports, Candy Waller, with us here in the Fast Lane. Would getting Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin back solve everything for the Commanders because it gives them a boost in addition to their offense? Or is there such a concern on the defense that they'll win some of these games, but there are going to be other spots where this defense, if not fixed, is just going to be too much to handle as the season progresses?
Well, I think it's an issue across the board because if you really even think about last season, that's one of the things that I've been sharing. It's the Washington Commanders just played the Atlanta Falcons in December. It's a different season, different personnel. But when you think about personnel that really beat the Commanders yesterday, it was the same personnel that almost won back in December, right? The only difference was game went to overtime and the Washington Commanders won the coin toss and Jaden Daniels took the ball down the field and scored the Zach Ertz touchdown, right? So this team can easily match up their Falcons offensive weapons with this Commanders defense. They struggled really bad last December. So they really have to take another hard look at what they're not doing well and fix that. They had several of the younger players not get any defensive snaps yesterday, but they were all towards special teams. So in terms of kind of mixing in some of the younger guys and just scheming for their opponent, they really need to take a hard look at that. Because again, this season is not going to get any easier. It could go downhill really fast based on the schedule just in October alone.
Yes, it could. That's the thing the Commanders look to avoid. We don't avoid the insight. We always look for it at Bowie TV Sports and CEO Seawall on Instagram, Seawall SE on Twitter for those that dare venture over there. Candy Waller, once again in the Fast Lane. Seawall, always great to catch up with you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and I'll be talking to you guys again soon.
We look forward to it as well. Boots on the ground with the Washington Commanders. Candy Waller in the fast lane on W227 BG Timberlake, WVGM AM Lynchburg, WMNA Gretna Danville Southside. Now on to Freddie and Harry, joined in progress for their final hour before we give way to Monday Night Football, our doubleheader here on the VTRN Sports app, and ask that smart speaker open VTRN Sports.
We make the claims process easy so you can get back on the road in no time. It's why over 43 million